folks. Welcome today to our Digital Marketing Career webinar. I'm Christine Schrader. I'm the head of content here at Conductor, so I'm sort of the Lorax for content marketers today. And I'm here live, even though we're on two separate cameras. That's just because we were arguing over who got the phone.
Yeah. I swear we're in the same room. I swear.
But let me let Pat introduce himself also.
Hey everyone, Pat Reinhardt here, VP of Digital Strategy for Conductor. Looking forward to talking about our salary guide and how you can help leverage that data to kind of push your career forward in SEO. So looking forward to going through this. Have a few questions. It's going to be an interesting one because we have some polls that we're going to do. Christine and I are going to go back and forth on our ideas and how we've progressed through content and through SEO. So I think we can just kind of get into it. What do you think, Christine?
I think that sounds great. Let me give you guys a little bit of a background on why we're doing this. So we've actually done the salary guide for like 7 years, I think. So before my time, before Pat's time, there was the salary guide, and it's grown a lot since then. But the reason we do this is really a gift to the SEOs and content marketers in our space. Like Pat is an SEO, I am a content marketer, right? These things actually are interesting to us as well, and can affect how we, pitch for promotions here at Conductor and how we help our team members, right, get to where they need to be, because there's nothing marketers love more than data. I think you'll agree, Pat,
100%.
Even content marketers. And what gives you the extra oomph when you're looking to create a promotion pitch, or you're thinking about your next career move and what skills you need to develop? Those questions are what we have in mind when we make this guide. And so we wanted to add a little something else, which is from the two major areas that are affected by the data that we have here, content marketing and SEO. How do we actually make sure this data gives you everything that you need? As we go forward, we will be doing polls. Those are just to help us keep the conversation as effective for you guys as possible. We also will be taking Q&A, so there's a Q&A box here in the webinar window. Please don't hesitate at any point to comment, to ask us questions. We will get to all of them. And with that, I'm going to open up our first poll, which is asking about how confident you are in building a case for a promotion or a raise in your current role. So this is always tricky, this question. They're not always the same, right? Sometimes you're looking for a raise because of work you're done, but not necessarily to move to the next level. Sometimes you're really looking for, that next step. And in the content world, right, that can be hard sometimes because we have some issues attaching, right, like those attribution and business metrics to what we're doing. And from the SEO side, I've heard some other things about almost being too data focused and speaking the wrong language. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you going for a promotion in SEO, at least through my career, so over the course of my 15 careers, I've gotten several promotions in a couple of different companies. And, a lot of it is based, these days, a lot more people know what SEO is. So I think that today, it's probably a lot easier to walk into your boss's office and say, hey, I want a promotion based on the SEO campaign that we ran. 10, 12 years ago, me walking into my boss's office and saying, hey, I'm looking to get to the next level of my career. Here's what the team and I have been working on. And I think it's X, Y. I think it's important because of X, Y, Z. And they would probably look at me and be like, yeah, SEO, that's that, yeah, that's the thing that's kind of like paid search, right? You'd be like, no, it's not like paid search. What are you talking about? Completely separate profession. But I think that the good thing is that, a lot of SEOs, confidence in building a case is not something that's a problem, right? Like you said, very data focused. We know what's going on. We know exactly where our campaigns are. So if you ask most SEOs, hey, where is this campaign at, and what are we ranking for? What's the how much money has it made this year? 99% of them are going to say they're just going to rattle off the answers because they're so intimate with their campaigns, right? So the confidence portion of it from going for the promotion, I think that the confidence is there. And I think that these days that the confidence within an organization also exists, a lot more than it did, even 5 years ago, where, people understand that it's important. And we're going to get into this in a few minutes on, the amount of SEO jobs and content jobs that have risen, which is staggering numbers. So even still this year, every year that we do this, I'm always surprised about the amount of content jobs, the amount of SEO jobs that have risen, but also the salaries that go along with it. So it's a thing, SEO is a thing, content's a thing. And I think companies, everyone's should be confident in these professions to go in and ask for that promotion, because it's a lot, I don't want to say easy, because like a lot of people will be like, it's not easy, what are you talking about, Pat? Be like, it's a lot easier than it was back in the day.
Sure, and I think that, we're seeing this right now in the poll, so we're almost split, but a little edge to the yeses in confidence, which I love to hear, because
great.
Let's reveal our first piece of data here, which is salaries are going up almost in every single job title we looked at, and that's incredible. We actually only had 3 titles that did not go up, and none of them particularly dropped. 2 of them dropped a very small amount, just $2,000, and actually we started tracking a new role, which is digital marketing manager, so we didn't have data on that from last year. Every single other one went up, and SEO managers went up $20,000.
It's amazing.
That's amazing. I want $20,000 more dollars. I'm going to switch out of content now. But actually, content managers went up $10K too. So let's talk about how you use data like this. And this is like a good snapshot. But it's average across all different kinds of company sizes, against locations. So this is like just something to look at. And we should get excited, because what it does tell us is that the trend is that businesses are investing in this, right? They're putting more money toward it. They're looking to sort of raise people, go senior, right? Like kind of give them more responsibilities. That's usually what raises have to do. And in conjunction with the demand data, there's more demand out there, right? It's more competitive to lure people in, as creepy as that sounds. But it's not exactly where you make that business case we were talking about. Just an average salary. You want to dig a little bit more than that, and this is why, right? These titles can be a little bit of a catch-all, right? An SEO manager at one company might be doing something different than an SEO manager at another company, different levels of seniority, and that kind of thing, and encompassing different pieces of these responsibilities. So let's talk about how we actually would use this. So I'm a senior manager of content strategy, which shockingly is not a specific title right here on the sheet, because a lot of us have titles that aren't exactly one-to-one with other companies. So I would take this and I would look like, okay, I know I'm sort of between like this director role and a manager role. I can get an idea like, do I think I'm in the ballpark salary-wise? And then kind of look to start in my area. What does that look like in my industry? What information is out there, and do a little bit more digging. I might also look at other people, like on LinkedIn, right, like who are about equivalency. What skills are they listing? What responsibilities are they listing? Because as a content person, we just talked about how SEOs are great at data. I need to bring more data in. I can create a story, and that's what SEOs maybe need a little bit of work on.
No, fair enough, absolutely. And I think, like taking that into account, you see here, there's a lot of, generalist type titles here, right? And, for me, SEO manager could mean 2 major things, right? That is, SEO manager, they manage campaigns and they manage their own world, and they're a one-person show. But it also, SEO manager could mean managing a team of SEOs. So that's 2 very different things to consider too. What do you want to do? Traditionally or historically, a lot of SEO folks are introverts. Like that's a big characteristic that a lot of people would say about SEOs, which I don't think is that true. Which I don't think it's that true anymore. Most of the SEO folks that I hang out with are very outgoing, and they're ready to go to that next level. But at the end of that, though, like, you have to figure out what you want to do. Do you want to be an individual contributor, or do you want to be a people manager? Those are 2 very, very different jobs. Individual contributors, you own your campaigns and you rock and roll them, and the only thing that you can go on is what were the results of those campaigns this year, leading up in the time that you've been there, right? Going for a people manager job, that's a whole different ballpark, right? That's, hey, I want to help mentor people, I want to help coach people, I want to help teach people. That's not what everyone wants to do. And the other big misconception there is that everyone thinks you can only get ahead or only get to the next level salary-wise or career-wise by becoming a traditional manager, right? By managing people. That's not true. Being an individual contributor is just as, having great amount of individual contributors at a company is just as important as having a lot of great managers. So I just want to kind of dispel that you have to manage people to get to the next level. That is not true. But for the most part, you also have to go in with a good case. You need a case. Like, you can't just go and be like, I've been here for 2 years and I want a raise and I want a promotion. All right, cool. Why? because you guys like me. It's like, well, yeah, Pat, we like you. But, at the end of the day, what have you done for the company, right? You have to be able to prove that you've done something to the company that has been impactful. And that is, regardless of how well loved you are, that is still something that you have, that you have to make that business case. And another thing that I will throw a little bit of advice out there for this is, if you are going for a promotion within a company and you're looking for, a good chunk raise, look at what you make now, and then versus what you want. As Christine said, go out there, find years of experience, skill set, what you've done at a company in a particular way, and when you go to make that ask, make sure that ask is realistic. Give your manager a break. If you go in asking for a $35,000 raise, you're probably not going to get it. That's really, depending on what you're starting from, that's true. But at the end of the day, give yourself like a 2-year plan. Like, I want to be here in 2 years. And then what do you want to be in 3 years? And then when you get to that third year, reassess and make another 2-year plan and kind of give yourself steps from a salary standpoint on where you want to be, but also very strategically place those promotions too, right? When you're asking, because when you're asking for money, you can't get a huge chunk every year. The promotion is where you typically get a bigger chunk out of it. So when you're thinking about, hey, listen, if I want to be an IC, okay, I know what I have to do to prove to get to this amount of money in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that I have to prove X, Y, Z. And the same thing, if I'm a people manager and I want to get to this salary range, this title, and X, Y, Z, I have to do X, Y, Z to get to those in the course of those 2 years. But it may take more than just a year to get there. So if you have long-term plans within your company, which I hope that you do, then think of it that way as well, is that you can leverage the data, but make sure that you have a plan to go with it, that if you want to get like another $40,000 like add to your salary over the next few years, don't go and ask for it all at once, because that might actually work against you and make you look like you're unrealistic, asking for a really unbelievable amount of money when you can space it out a little bit and still get there and maintain a level of sanity.
Yeah, and I think, so we do have another poll. You guys might have noticed that we copy edited on the fly. So one thing I wouldn't show in my next promotion pitch is, as a content marketer who has a lot of copy editing experience, is a picture of me in this webinar with a typo on it. But Val, who's in the room with us and is always doing the incredible tech work behind the scenes, just fixed it for me. So she's amazing. Just wanted to give her a little shout out. But I wanted to seize on something that Pat said, which is the word "oh." I know that I actually find it deeply uncomfortable to pitch for promotions because I was sort of raised in, some people say women do this more often than men, that if I deserve it, they'll just offer it to me, and I feel very uncomfortable sort of being here's my thing, even if I think I'm owed it, right? Yeah. Here's the story of how I got there, et cetera, because then I feel like I'm sort of asking for something that I shouldn't be getting, because otherwise they would have just thought of it on their own, right? So one thing that I think really helps with this data, because we're going to go from here looking at a couple different things, but we're eventually going to get to this skills portion, is both building a business case, and we're going to give you guys some pointers on that about how you've affected the company, but also making sure to build in, not just up against the I have a promotion pitch tomorrow, but making sure that you actually are looking to develop new skills, find areas of opportunity within your business, even if they're not exactly in your wheelhouse, et cetera, where you can educate yourself, start learning, et cetera. And actually a lot of companies, and this is actually something I do feel more comfortable asking for, are willing to invest in some of those things. And you're making a business case there too. You're saying oh, if I go out for this certification, if I take this course, if I attend this conference, I'm going to be able to get X from it and bring that back to the business. We actually have somebody, so I don't know if you guys know, we're really into organic marketing. We have not really had a mature paid search strategy. So our SEO, our in-house SEO actually went out, took a boot camp on paid search, right? It's figuring out what that looks like, because it was a hole in what we were doing. And, that was something that we wanted to be able to supplement our organic strategy. We didn't have somebody, we didn't have the capacity, but now he can make an actual, when he's making that promotion pitch, he should be talking about that, why he did it, what he saw as an expert in SEO that indicated we needed a little bit more on this side too. So thinking about that, I think, is really important. But you're never owed anything, and that's the hard thing. If your company's not treating you right, you need to raise that flag, and if they don't pay attention, it's probably time to go. But it's not because you're owed; it's because you are the fighter for yourself, right? And your company's not your parent. You can have good companies, you can have bad companies, but in the end, you're the person that holds those reins. So let's go forward. And I think that this next poll actually, it's important to note from this, because we said, yes, I feel comfortable and confident going out there and pitching for a promotion or raise, but no, I'm not satisfied right now. What does that disconnect mean? It means that there's probably a little bit of, dissatisfaction in the current, but your company is setting the stage, right, in some way for you to move forward, or you're performing well, or you feel like you have a handle on the data or the story that you need to go forward. So let's talk a little bit about how to look. So we'll talk about business results, but what should you look at in the marketplace to help you make that case, so that if you're not satisfied right now, you can actually get a bead on, should I be satisfied? Maybe I'm getting paid kind of what I should be. If not, maybe your title is wrong. Maybe you actually have more responsibility than that looks like, so you should be actually looking for a promotion. Or maybe the salary is not what it should be, and you need to take proactive steps on that as well. So what that starts with, that is getting more specific, because we talked about that average salary number, right? That's great. We all cheer about it, right? That's the one that'll catch the headlines. But it's not actually the most useful for you.
Right.
What else should we look at when we're thinking about, am I making the right amount of money? Obviously, not everything is transparent as we prefer it to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it just, look at peers, right? Look at people in your industry that look at, where, Glassdoor actually has a really great, way to just kind of get a feel for the range that you should be in.
And pay scale too.
And pay scale, where you should be, where people in your area. That's the another big thing, is in your area, right? Because an SEO in New York is probably, making a little bit more than an SEO in, let's say, Wisconsin. I don't know, a little bit more of a rural area. So thinking of that as well, cost of living comes into that as well. So, looking at your area is a really important thing to note, while you're looking. And then from there, it's really about, I always say that, looking at, years of experience and things of that nature, and help, it's I am a 5-year SEO, let's just say that, right? And, I'm going for a position that typically requires 10 years of experience. And I'm not saying that you have to only hang your hat on years of experience, right? It's all about what you do in your job, do in your company, and the impact that you have. But as just a really, baseline thing that you can do, that you can look at, that you can go out into the world and look at, is years of experience, area, and then ultimately finding trusted sources that can give you a range of And the other thing is you don't always, most people, of course, we're human. What do? We look at the highest number, right? It's oh my God, someone with the exact same title as me makes $30,000 more than me. I must be underpaid. And it's okay, that might be true. Christine, to your point, that might be true. So then you have to kind of look internally and say, what am I doing in my current role, right? What am I doing here? Okay, I have a range. I know that I should be somewhere in there. I'm at the lower end of it, or maybe even below the lower end of it. Or I'm in the middle of it and I'm looking to get to the upper end of it. What am I doing right now? Perfect example. So SEO going out and, went out this year and learned paid search, knew it was a gap. What a great thing to go into a promotion pitch to say, you know what, I was proactive and I went out and I learned an entirely new skill that is very important to our team. And I am now applying that against it. I grew here, this company, allowed me to grow here, and I'm now running this whole other thing. I now have 2 jobs. I'm now doing multiple things, where before I was only doing one. And, most of the time content SEO people are wearing multiple hats, as we all know. Anyway, but I got my hats in my closet, over here.
He never put the hat on that hair. Don't listen to him.
No, I totally wear hats. What are you talking about? But also, looking at the ranges for your area, that's a big thing, and, level of experience. And I think from there, a lot of it, like I said, the human nature is to go to the highest number. Again, I come back to my previous point. It's like, just be realistic about where you're at, and saying like, okay, cool. Like, do I believe that I should be at the high end of that? If so, totally get the confidence and go in and talk to your boss about it. There's nothing wrong. I always say that I am always transparent. Anyone who joins, 30/30, every month knows that I am a complete open book. I tell everyone everything that I can. I treat my folks here exactly the same way. Everything's completely transparent. I always say, if you want something, just tell me and let's get a plan to get there. Now, if you go in and you say, hey, listen, I did all this research, even you put a pitch together and you go through it, here's why I think this is, and they're just like, no, I think it's really like you're just going to get 3% this year or something like that. It's like, okay, then you have to start thinking about, like, am I really valued here? Is all the work that I'm doing, which I know, it's like, am I in the right place? And that's when, and I'm not telling everyone to go quit your jobs and everything, you're like, screw all you guys, but like, it's really more about like knowing your value at the company, knowing your worth in the industry, and making sure those two match up. Because a lot of the times, and that poll that we just did, a lot of people unhappy with their salaries, I'm not really surprised to see that. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not surprised to see that, because a lot of times people don't align that, and they don't talk about it. That's the other thing, that they're too afraid to talk about it. If you're too afraid to talk to your manager about your financial situation, at work, or your salary, not your financial situation. Anyway, like your financial, situation at work, then they're probably not the right fit for you.
I think that relationship building, which is a longer term thing, is so important with your direct, supervisor, your direct manager.
Yep.
I know at Conductor, I've been super lucky. I've had 2 managers since I've been here. One of which is my newer manager, is Pat's old boss, Stefan. And they're people that I know that, one, they're going to advocate for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm pitching, they're going to be supporting me. They're going to be working with me in advance to make sure that, I'm thinking about who my audience might be for that pitch, what that's going to look like, what kind of data points they think will help me do that. And that does not start, because it's promotion season. It starts long before that.
Yep.
And they also are frankly talking to me about my expectations. They're not just saying, no, that's ridiculous, or yes, do that. They're talking to me, giving me information, I think this is realistic. Obviously, they're not trying to stop me from asking what I want, et cetera, but they're having that two-way conversation where we come out with, a knowledge of, what that looks like, what we think is possible, what we want to push for, and how to best make that case. And that gets more and more important if you're asking for, larger percentages, right?
Yeah.
If you're asking for these very, for a significant raise, for whatever reason, you have to be building a really, really solid case for it.
Yeah.
And that means you want to have other people in your corner about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one thing you were talking about was, looking at data. I also think, salary transparency, it can be hard on your team to talk to people about this, because you feel competitive. You don't want to what if you find out, guy next to you does everything you do, makes, $20K more than you. That's upsetting. All it does is help you. All of that is more information. So as much as transparency can be done, at least amongst your friends, if you're not at the same company, get an idea of what people in your area, if they're in your industry, see if you can develop some of those relationships. I also think that considering not just location but industry is important. Considering the size of the teams you're looking at, et cetera. A lot of us are in startups. Are there equity considerations? All of those things might kind of go in, and that's why salary isn't always an accurate number all by itself.
That's a great point. Salary isn't always about the dollar amount. Especially if you're in a startup, it could be equity. So that's a very, very important point.
Yeah. And also, your benefits and those kinds of things. And that also, when you're in a negotiation period, we a lot of times focus on that number. Not that it's not important, right? But also pay attention. If they've gone as far as they can go on the number, what else could you maybe work with them? That's why, involving HR, et cetera, in that process. What can you come together with? And I think a big point with negotiations for me is that we a lot of times think of it as very combative, right? Pat versus Christine, Pat wants to not give her money and Christine wants money, right? That's Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on TV. When in fact what it actually is two parties, if it's done in good faith, which, there are bad companies, bad actors out there, but two parties coming together to find a mutually beneficial solution, right? getting people the title that they need to have, taking on the responsibilities the business needs them to have, and getting the results the business needs to have for an amount of money and benefits, et cetera, that person needs to like go forward. And if you approach it that way, where it is this conversation, and you've got this story and you're backed up with this data, right, you can be a lot more confident walking into that room. And I know you guys are mostly confident, but that also can help you feel more in control beyond the promotion piece, right? Not just going into that conversation, but also going, okay, once I'm there, once I've gotten what I want or didn't get what I want, what do I do from there? That reaction, right, is actually how, you know, you go forward from there. So that might be setting up, okay, maybe I didn't get what I wanted. I want to know the steps I need to take to do that. What do I need to develop? What do I need to take on? What does that look like? And make sure that conversation continues outside of that room and should be happening sort of all the time.
All the time.
So it's not a surprise, right? If you walk into a review and you're completely shocked, something is broken. Either your manager is not giving you feedback or you aren't listening or whatever it might be. You want to be having that two-way conversation, those one-on-ones every week, and like money can come into that. Don't be afraid. It's not all about that, but like those conversations should be part of that relationship that you're developing.
Right. Yeah. It's not just it doesn't happen in a vacuum for like, this is the 2 weeks we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's something that you talk about throughout the year, honestly, you know, leading up to it. And like you said, if you walk into a review and you're like, this was a great year, and they're like, hey man, like we got problems, you know, you're like, what?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like there's something broken.
Yeah.
So all these conversations should be happening throughout the entire year, not just like the 2 weeks before whenever your comp cycle happens.
For sure. And like that all of those lessons actually are true about people looking for a new job also. There are times when we have to look for a new job. There's not room to grow in a current position, or you know, you just need to try something new, and that's okay too. You know, it's not always unhappy when you're looking for a new job. It can be. I think, you know, we want to acknowledge that, but it also can be something that, like, you know, you're just ready for that. And when you're going into those pieces, right, when you're kind of doing the due diligence, when you're figuring out what those look like, you should be digging into, like, those responsibilities. What can you be developing, even if you're not looking now because you're reading other job descriptions about what's open, like keeping on top of those on, like, LinkedIn, et cetera? Are there skills that people seem to be asking for or needing that, like, aren't really what you do here, but, hey, that's a good point, right? That can get you there. If you're in the lower end of a salary range for a position, an area, an industry that you're in, realizing how not just, like years of experience, but like depth of experience, right? And kind of pushing some of that out a little bit more.
Yep.
What can you be getting proactive about and not just being reactive? That kind of gets you into that right mindset. And that being said, we've got a pretty good split here.
Oh, all right.
A lot of you are looking for a new opportunity. Some of you are preparing to pitch in their current positions, and about a third of you are happy where you are. It's interesting to me because I left this a little bit open-ended on purpose, looking for a new opportunity. I'll leave that to you guys, whether that might be a new opportunity at the job you're at, or a new opportunity at another company. I think probably most of them is another company, because that's how we tend to read these things. But opportunities can also come from within, right? Like, I've actually done like a lateral move before in my career where I just was not quite happy, like sort of like in the exact position I was in. So I was on an academic side of a test prep company, and actually went into marketing to try and, like, it was like a lateral move. I didn't take I think I got a small raise because I'm a negotiator, right? Like got a small raise, and then like moved into that. But that's where, like, new opportunities aren't always like just relentless forward. A lot of people's career paths now are a little bit different, right? And that's not a bad thing, I don't think. For content marketers, a lot of times we see people coming from like journalism backgrounds or creative writing backgrounds, all of that kind of stuff, more often I think than like traditional like marketing, right? And SEOs, I feel like, always have a really weird story.
You know what? It's so funny. Like, so going into the most common way that people get into SEO, and the most common response that you will get is, yeah, I just kind of fell into it, right? You know, because a lot of us just kind of fell into it. When I got out of college, you know, back in a year, you know, back in the past, which shall remain undisclosed, you know, I could not find a job. So what did I do? I started an e-commerce site called OneClickAppliances.com, and I sold major appliances across the United States. I built that up over 3 years. You want to know what I was doing there? I didn't know it was called it at the time. I was doing SEO the entire time. I realized that if I put certain words in the title tag, I would rank better and make more money. That's how I fell into SEO. Another very common path in SEO is musicians. A lot of musicians go into SEO. I don't know why. It's just a thing.
You have a band?
I did. I was a touring musician. I was, along with Ralph over here at Conductor. That's how I met him. But the funny thing is, like, a lot of people on my team currently all play an instrument. They were all in bands at some time, but that's also another very common theme that you find, that people just kind of get into it. And it's not just this, hey, I went to school for organic marketing, or I went to school for SEO. No, it's like, hey, I went to school for business. I went to school for marketing. I went to school for journalism. I went to school for, I don't know, like some, art history, something that has nothing to do with anything that we're doing right now. But like you said, it's very rare that your careers are very linear and you stay in one place, right? So I've been in SEO for 15 years. SEO, I've not been an SEO practitioner necessarily for 15 years, though, right? You know what I mean? Like, what was I? I was a business owner. I was a private consultant. Then I went to the agency world, and I ran my first group there, where I was, like, running a group. I was like, okay. That was like, oh, okay, this is a weird, it's a weird path. Then I met Seth at my old agency. That's how I got to Conductor, right? I started working for Stefan. And what did I come here for? I came here to mainly educate. My original job description was to educate internally and externally. I came here basically as an evangelist, and then what happened? 2 days later, I was running a migration, and we started Pro Services. I was like, oh, okay, now I'm running another group
and
here.
Now, you have just we have just put together this whole crazy orchestra thing, right?
Yeah, we're releasing. We built an entirely new service model here, and I co-lead customer success now.
I'm just going to let
cool.
you guys know that Pat actually has a really interesting, I think, perspective here for anybody thinking about answering questions, because he's actually kind of tasked and a key person in sort of recruiting an SEO team, recruiting and training, and figuring out how they're dividing labor and that kind of stuff. So from that point of view, also, when you're talking about the person you might be talking to for that SEO job, Pat would be that person at some point. I encourage you to ask questions about that. I do want to bring up really quick, Carrie asked a question about government salaries. So the old GS does not leave a lot of wiggle room. So I grew up in D.C. Everybody I knew worked for the government, you're right. There is a lot less room for negotiation. But what I have found is sometimes, as at least from the people I know, and I know this can differ from agency to agency. I know the patent office doesn't do GS schedules and that kind of thing, but the way forward that I saw people kind of taking in the federal government in particular, we're really looking on that development end, right? The federal government a lot of times is running a little bit behind the industries that, whether that's SEO or content or, that kind of thing, whatever agency or part of the government you're looking for. Really look to make the case about how to kind of consumerify. We have to do this as a B2B company, Conductor, right? We're a lot of times a little bit behind what B2C companies do and what those experiences feel like. So really looking to say, if we can bring, X in line with this, these are the metrics you care about. Maybe it's traffic, maybe it's getting people to fill out a form, whatever that looks like, and align it more with B2C style marketing. So developing those skills, and then to me, that provides a very unique vision. It provides a unique story and has measurable things you can say, here's how this made a difference from A to B. What you're really arguing for, right, is to go up a level instead of sort of negotiating your pay from within your level. There's good parts to that because that you'll get certain things happening in a certain, at certain times. And also I think that there's a lot of flow between contractors and government agencies, et cetera. So if there's a lot of good things about working for the government, including stability and that kind of, those big factors. But, you probably will make more money in the private sector. So potentially looking to the organizations that your agency works with, et cetera. Otherwise, I think you do have to really build the case using your specific metrics and develop skills around those things.
Yep.
I don't know what your thoughts are.
No, couldn't agree more. Because within the government sector, everything's very structured. You know what I mean? But like you said, the biggest benefit is the stability of it. There's pensions involved sometimes, things of that nature. Where in the private sector, you're more than likely going to make more money just outright in the private sector. That's why a lot of folks go from government into the private sector at some point, and back and forth sometimes. Absolutely. So it all depends on what you're looking for. But to Christine's point, building that case is all of those rules still apply here. It's just building that case of what you've done, the impact you've had on the agency.
I also feel like mentorships are really important in the federal government. So my grandfather actually was in the Department of Energy for forever, till he retired. And I actually just last weekend went to a wedding of the daughter of one of the people he mentored. He had just 1,000 people that he mentored while he was there. And I know that what I always hear from them and what I've heard from many of my friends who are still in D.C., still working for the government is find the people that will be your advocates and proponents and will teach you how to kind of cut through the system, because those people are you cannot, but they're worth their weight in gold, because they will be the people that will show you where to go, who are looking outside of OPM for potentially new opportunities for you that you could go forward with. And I think that. And that's true in the private sector as well. Mentorship, as I talked about, I've had really great relationships with bosses, and I've had some bad ones too, can make a huge difference in how you approach this and whether or not you're making the most effective possible case.
Absolutely.
I will say that you can see here, DC is at the bottom of our SEO job pool, which makes me sad. But number 11 for content marketing, so content still cool in DC, and I don't think they made our PPC list at all. What I want you to think about in terms of location, looking at this data, is what does demand mean? And we're going to get that a little bit more because we're going to see some more general numbers around demand. But why is high demand good, right? Why might you move to New York to get an SEO job, or Austin, which is really interesting?
Yeah, interesting.
We'll talk about that in a sec. Why would you do that? But why might you decide to move somewhere with a little bit less demand? What are the kind of pros and cons of that?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to demand, so you'll see that, of course, New York City and San Francisco, right, will have higher salaries, right? But what do they also have higher of?
Much. Cost of living.
Cost of living. It's so much more expensive to live here than it is in, let's say, Denver, Colorado, right, which has a budding, tech and SEO scene right now. And for the most part, I think going to an area that has less competition, it depends what you want out of it, right? If you want to be in a bustling area where there's a lot of different companies around, then you're probably going to want to go to New York. You're probably going to want to go to San Francisco. But if you want more of a low key, type of, hey, listen, I want to go there, I want to do a great job, but I don't want all the hustle and bustle. I just want to be able to do my job, do really well, live my life, be comfortable. Then, a lower demand area might be what you're looking for. I think it's amazing that Austin, Texas, comes up over and over. Austin is an amazing area. There's a great tech scene down there, but it's still super mellow down there. Yeah. Every time I go down there, I'm like, oh, this is so nice. But there's a ton of companies down there, right? And there's a ton of things. But we're going to ruin it.
Everyone I know.
Totally. Yeah. The minute that we figure that out, we're all going to go down there and ruin it. Just like Colorado, you know what I mean?
Giant skyscraper right here. So a chill one.
Yeah, and that's really what it's about, what you're looking for. If you want, but it's all relative, though. You know what I mean? If you're okay, I'm making $150,000 in New York City, it's okay, your rent is $7,000.
Right.
It's okay, I'm making $100,000 in, Ohio, let's say. I don't, just say somewhere in North Dakota. It's okay, cool, my mortgage is $1,200.
It goes a lot
it goes a lot further. So there's a back and forth there. So when you actually look at the relative, everyone's actually kind of around the same, when you get to certain bands.
And that is part of why location is so important to consider when you're looking at these things. But I also think if you're open, right, if you're not sure, if you're maybe looking, I know a bunch of you are looking for new opportunities, and maybe you're in New York and looking in New York, maybe you're in New York and looking in Austin, right?
Yep.
there's that give and take there, right? If there is high demand, there's high competition, right? There's going to be a lot of people kind of like fighting over there.
It's going to be more stressful. It's going to be more pressure.
Yeah, it might be like even just little things like just like a longer ramp time to getting through the like process of interviewing, et cetera, because there's like a higher volume of applicants. So there's that part, right? When you're looking at like potentially less competitive areas, then there might not be as many jobs. If you don't get that job, maybe you're not going to that area because that's like the only one there. But also you can be in pretty high demand in those areas. Obviously, like that is a factor there. So when you're thinking about it, like obviously there's a lot of other factors about how you want to live, right? If you want to cram yourself into a metal train box every day and like go back and forth when really outside of work all you do is watch TV. But you know, or you would like somewhere with like outdoor space, or you have family somewhere, you have a support center. There's a million reasons like to settle in different areas. But it's just on the job front, if you're looking, you know, really figure out what's more important to you. And not that you have to have like a 20-year plan, but like what are you thinking about in like 5 to 10 years? You know, there's a lot of people that come to somewhere like New York, work for, you know, 5, 10 years, like do well, and then like go somewhere else. Because like, you know, they'll be able to buy a house then. They'll be able to do X, Y, and Z that they might not have been able to do here. So looking at those like longer term plans, I think is important. But if you are looking elsewhere, remember that scale, you need to do that due diligence research, right? Understand what kind of salaries people are looking for, what that cost of living difference is. I know from 80% of the people I know, the first attempt to look to move outside New York and being like, how much are you thinking about paying me? Like, what the hell is going on? And you're like, you know, you're
cost less to live here,
you're moving to like Charlotte, North Carolina.
Like
it's
doesn't
a little
cost
different.
that much to live here.
So like making sure to kind of, you know, solve for that and look there.
Yeah.
We did ask who would reconsider relocating for a job opportunity. We've got 57% with a no there. So people feeling pretty good about where they are.
I fall into that bucket. You know, I'm a townie, you know, so I live in the same town I grew up in on Long Island. I can walk to my parents' house, but both sides of my family are on Long Island. My brother lives very close to me, you know, but all of them there, like I love other places in this, you know, other places I love, there's Chicago I've always loved. I love Austin, you know, I've fallen in love. You know, Colorado is really nice, you know, from there I always want warmer weather. But for me, it's just like I would never relocate because my entire life is in a place. And I think that, you know, a lot of people are in that same boat. Like once you establish your life somewhere and all the people around you stay, you know, that's a big factor too. You know, sometimes people say like Long Island is one of the most, it's, oh my God, it's one of the most expensive places on earth to live. Everyone's like, why do you, like, it's like irresponsibly expensive to live there. And, you know, everyone's like, why do you still live in Long Island? I go, my entire life is there. I go, my entire life is in, you know, is in and around Wantagh. So, you know, so for the most part, that's why, you know, but like, I feel like a lot of people get into that boat. Like once you establish your life somewhere, you go and you find something that works for you there. And it depends what's important, right? You know, I have a lot of friends who relocated and came back to Long Island. One of my buddies went out to Chicago for a job opportunity, stayed out there for 3 years, came back to Long Island after he, you know, and it really helped his career to go out and do that. It was not an easy decision, but I understand why people relocate. But then there's the other factor is like, hey man, I just want to live somewhere else. You know, like I want to try it out. And you know, there's always that there's always that factor as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm like a little bit more of a nomad, but I've actually never relocated like just for a job, except I think once. I think everything else was like moving for different reasons, or I wanted to go somewhere, so like I found a job where I wanted to go. And I think that you know, to me, I would actually encourage people, not that you have to force yourself to relocate for a job opportunity, but take a look around, right? Like get an understanding of what those things look like, because just like knowing your own market is really important, understanding that there are other markets, other people that like they potentially, you know, are choosing from, et cetera. More knowledge is power for you, right? So considering those kinds of things, considering that like, you know, as you're making those decisions, I think is really important. It doesn't mean that like, you know, you're better or worse if you want to stay or you want to leave or, you know, you're looking elsewhere. But more knowledge is always going to be helpful.
100%.
Even on Long Island.
Even on Long Island.
So the big opportunity numbers, these were kind of crazy. So this was the aggregate number of SEO job openings, up 81%. And then if I didn't think that was impressive, content jobs opening, up
112%. That is
my God, that goes on the
crazy.
Refrigerator.
Yeah.
And to me, what this speaks to is a trend that I think we talk about a lot, and it's this investment, right? People are investing in inbound marketing, in organic marketing, in content, in SEO, more and more. And I think that's awesome. That's amazing, because we think that's such an incredible source for like customer knowledge and that kind of, all of those things. But what's really cool is that for you guys, you guys are the marketers, that means you have some exciting things that you can be doing.
Yeah.
You really are in this sort of buyer's market. And that doesn't mean you need to have a midlife crisis, throw your current job out the window and get out there. But it does mean that your skills, people want them.
Yeah.
People know they're worth something. And that means you got to make sure your company knows that as well, right? So if you're on the job market, that means a lot of options. If you're at a company, that means really looking that there's a lot of information about those skills to develop, a lot of that kind of thing. How do you get ahead of the curve and make sure that you are showing that value that you know you have, because the market says so, to the company you're at?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're a commodity, you know what I mean? Like, people in content and SEO, like, as people are realizing, and I've said this for a while, that, it's just like years going by, right? It's people who were in SEO jobs or content jobs, during the times when it wasn't, something that people looked, too favorably on. It was just like this, that person in the corner doing X, Y, Z. But now, as people have grown up in their organizations, they know that it's important. And also people who, who have been in companies who have been fighting for that this is important, who are now the CMOs of the world and the CDOs of the world and the CEOs of the world. They understand that organic marketing and content is important, and that CPCs are only rising, PPC budgets are only going up, and that, SEOs are and content, pretty steady investments. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like something like,
You don't depreciate.
Don't appreciate it. And that's the thing, I always say SEO is like a snowball rolling down a hill, and content's, a big part of that. As it rolls, and as they roll down, the ball gets bigger and bigger until it's big enough to knock a house down, and people understand that now. It's a horrifying metaphor, so there's all that.
I'll just put out there that content is that, and SEO is a nice part of it. So I'm going to do a switch over.
So, but like, honestly, like that's why it's becoming a commodity. People understand that it's important, and seeing that 112%, 81, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And the thing is, and we're going to talk about this in just a second about skills, and just FYI, we got about 11 minutes left. If you do have questions, please drop them in the inbox. We are here to answer them. But content and SEO are getting more and more entwined also, and that's and not just that, right? PPC is in there, right? There's like a lot of things that are kind of developing to make this more holistic view of marketing. And obviously, we're slightly biased. We think like organic insights and intelligence and data should be sort of at the heart of that, at the root of it, because they give us that like great insight into customer intent and what people want and what people need and how to kind of provide them value. But regardless of that, right, like sort of principle piece, looking at how all of these things are coming together brings us back all the way back to the beginning, because when we talked about that 20K bump for SEO managers that Pat brought up, he brought up an interesting thing. He was like, well, now SEO managers, they can be individual contributors or they can be people managers. And I want to talk about that for a second, because a lot of times there'd be like a copywriter, an SEO, right? These individual practitioners that were doing this, and they're kind of like working and supporting all these other things. Now, those are still very much support positions. Those content, SEO, they support a lot of cross-functionality. But right now, and we saw this in the data too, organizations, first of all, are bringing a lot of that stuff in-house. That's happening. And they're building teams around them. That's a huge investment. That's a huge investment to say, this is important enough not to just have one person that, like, that's, like, what they do when they sit over there. Saying, like, we are building teams around these things, and that these teams have become evangelists for this, right? Pushing out how this can be used, like, elsewhere within their organization, why this is so important. Interesting things on the content side, like marrying social and search intelligence, like what are all these data sets we've looked at separately for so long, and how can we bring them together and like understand where our customers are coming from and get that long-term value? That's so key. And SEO is something that I think before it was like, they're, they're the housekeeper at the back of the website. They're, for a content person, they're like, they make me go through that stupid checklist of optimizations for like my beautiful art, like creative baby that I made that like want me to shove a bunch of keywords in it, like these guys, or like IT, right? Like they fix what's broken on the website. And now when we look at it, we're like, at the inputs coming in from SEO as a content person, we're seeing all of this like cool data come in that makes me better able to make better content that actually drives stuff that I can measure, like from traffic to ROI, that then when I go to make my promotion pitch, I can say like, look what I did, X, Y, Z, and I can make that case for myself because of that marriage, bringing that thing together. And the better each of us as individuals make that case, the better our team budgets get, the better our resourcing gets, and the more that accrues, right? That rolling stone.
100%, yeah. And you find that they become, they're actually foundational skills, and a lot of people you can see, you bring to the table right now, really, really interesting. I love that. I love how many people have content marketing in here, right? Because, SEO, it's one of those things where, people like, you can really focus in on it and you can become an amazing, career SEO. I think even having a foundational knowledge of SEO is imperative for any digital marketer these days. Love seeing that content marketing is so high on this list because that is top. It's so key these days for everything. Overall strategy, that's great. That folks are thinking about the bigger picture. That goes back to, hey, are we talking to social folks? Are we talking to paid folks? Because again, you get a lot of companies get into the silo problem where it's like, well, okay, I'm just focusing on organic marketing. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, yeah, there's a bunch of other channels that influence this, and you guys should all be talking to one another. A lot of people don't think that, and a lot, almost 60% social media, which I find very interesting.
It's actually really weird. One of the data points we got in the full salary guide, so we broke it down by I think almost every single position, one of the skills was social media. And I think that's because introductory positions a lot of times include a social component, right? Where like people are like if they're interning, that kind of thing, that they're putting that as a skill. Those are like listed LinkedIn skills, and I wonder if that's part of it, that seems so ubiquitous.
I bet you're right.
Yeah, and I feel like that a lot of times that task kind of goes into that. What I think is also really interesting, for the 53% of you that didn't mark marketing strategy, when we did that skill breakdown, as we went more senior, first of all, you saw a wider array of skills, right? Like a lot more things, a lot more mix. And a lot of things have then started to turn to strategy. Some of that said marketing strategy, some said content strategy, some said organic strategy. But that word strategy just started like beating down. And so like making sure that you're not just getting really great at SEO, really great at content, or even really great at both, but also recognizing how that connects into all of these other things when you're going forward, right? And this is why maybe not your next promotion pitch, maybe the one after that, you want to make sure that you are like well prepared for that, I think is really, really key. And I am going to say from what Pat just said about SEO and content marketing, he is not alone in saying that is super important. 81% of SEO jobs require content skills, and for the first time in the history of the Conductor salary guide, the majority of content jobs that we saw required SEO skills, because it really is like that old, Married with Children song, right? They like love and marriage. You can't have one without the other. I'll leave people to debate about love and marriage and if that's true. But when it comes to SEO and content, if you are making digital content and putting it on the internet and you are not optimizing it and you're not at least doing that checklist, which we talked about as like old SEO. It's not the way we do it quite like that anymore. But if you're not at least doing that, what are you doing? Yeah. And if you're doing that and not paying attention to the front end where you can like find out all that stuff that like you can make for people and answer their questions, like Like, come on, we got to do that.
It's a myth, man. You know, like that's the whole thing. It's a myth, and a lot of people have realized this over time that it is a myth. And as I said, you know, you just said like the strategy piece keeps creeping up the more senior you get. That makes sense. As I said before, as people grow up within organizations, they get to those higher levels, and they're like, we have to be doing these two things. Hey, content people. Hey, SEO people. Hang out, talk to one another. You know, the checklist isn't that bad, content folks. Hey, SEO folks, you know, realize that you're not trying to change their jobs. You know, you guys got to work together. And I think that's why you're seeing, seeing this trend, which is really, really tremendous. And I think that the PPC information is also equally interesting. That 42% of SEO jobs require PPC experience in 2019, and 20% of content jobs require PPC.
But then what did we just talk about today with our SEO? He went out and got some like paid experience. Now our SEO sits on our content team, and actually we have increasingly been like, what are our paid channels doing, et cetera? Because to have a holistic distribution model for your content requires having an understanding of how it affects things on like the paid side.
Yeah.
And you got it.
Absolutely. And also creating a great piece of content raises your quality score. And if you optimize it and you have all three, that's a pretty powerful person right there.
Yeah. And like that's where, again, I think that's like a strategy element where when I'm talking about content distribution, that requires PPC skills, requires SEO skills, requires social media skills, as well as content skills. But it also requires me to understand a strategy about how to put all of those
they all work together.
Yeah. And so sometimes too, we talked about like education and that kind of thing. Like there might be a Linda course that's like a quick thing that you can do to develop a skill. But there's actually free stuff. I think like UC Davis online has Northwestern. Northwestern has a huge course that is free. That's like marketing strategy. Work through that. Like try and get up there. It doesn't mean you have to do it tomorrow, but get that perspective that gives you like an edge, right? It really, really does. The final thing I just wanted to point out in terms of information you should be taking in when you're looking to understand the market is looking at other people. LinkedIn is a great tool. We all are involved in, we're hopefully all involved in like networking opportunities, et cetera. But just even on LinkedIn, understand what other skills are out there. That's your competition, but it's also your peer set. And you don't always need to be chasing them, but you want to be keeping even or in fact pulling ahead. So knowing what's out there, knowing what people are working on, reading, listening to podcasts. Quick plug for Search on Tap for SEO.
Yeah, listen to Search on Tap. Come on.
But like that, like literally, like kind of seeking out that kind of information, I think is so key.
And and I like we say don't here, like assume you're underqualified. I know so many folks that didn't go for a job because they didn't fulfill one specific thing about what the job description said. Don't be afraid. If the job sounds like something that you can handle, go there and tell them why, and own up to it. Be like, listen, I don't necessarily have 100% skill in this one dependency, but I will learn that and I will be able to knock it out. But I have the basic understanding of it where I can make it work. You don't have to fulfill the job description 100% because the person writing it isn't necessarily looking for someone to fulfill it 100%. If you have the core knowledge of what it's about, then absolutely. Like if there's an SEO director job open or a content director job open, and you've never managed people, that doesn't mean you can't take that job.
And there are three things I think you can look at there, right? The worst they're going to say is no. The worst they're going to say is no, so why not try?
Why not try?
Two, if they say no, you just got an idea about things you could actually develop wherever you are now, whatever you're doing, education, et cetera, that you're like, wow, I want to make sure I'm ready for that. Three, if you're in a job now and you realize, like, you read this job description, maybe you went out for that job, it didn't work out, but that's more what you want. How does that tie into that larger strategy piece? How could you maybe pitch in your next promotion or 2 promotions from now, start moving things in that direction because you see a need for it, you see your passion, and a great organization is going to listen to that. Doesn't mean that it always works, right? Sometimes you want things that like your organization is not prioritizing, et cetera, but having those conversations, building those relationships, and having the data points to back them up. Why do you want to do that? It's because you're passionate about it, but it's also because it's going to do X for the business. It's where the market's going. It's where the competition is, right? That's where you want to be able to make that case that is plugged into the data, telling the story and selling that vision for you, for your company, both of those things. I love that 80% almost of you guys are really
awesome.
developing some important things for your careers. That growth is going to keep being so important as we go on. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for joining us. There is a certificate at the end, or you can take individual courses for the Northwestern course that Danny just asked about. I will have Val include the information about it in our follow-up email. I think it's on Coursera, just to be clear. So you can take individual classes, or you can take the whole thing, and then I do believe there is a certificate associated with it. But we will send out more information about this. If you guys have follow-up questions, etc., we are always around. Pat and I are happy to answer. I'm C. Schrader at Conductor.com. That guy's P. Reinhardt at Conductor.com, and we are just so excited for all of the opportunities you guys are going to take advantage of, and go out there and kill it.
Yeah, go out there and get it. Go get it. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.